Morning, folks. This is the Watchman on April the 27th. And I'm driving while mad or angry. Yesterday, I was speaking about the need for officials in particular, and particularly the Commissioner of Police, to have all ready information, all facts on the table before making statements to the press or before coming to conclusions. Now I'm reading today that the autopsy on Constable Jerks, I think that's how it's pronounced, that's how I pronounced it when I was in the service, shows that he was hit by a bullet at the back of his head, which tends to support what the suspect is saying on social media, and which completely undermines everything the commissioner has said in his haste and rage to say something about the incident. Come on! Everyone knows that in a case of a death, there must be an autopsy. An autopsy basically tells not only the cause of death, but it can provide exculpatory evidence with respect to determine if a person was involved in an incident, particularly shooting or a death. And it can also incriminate a person who was involved by virtue of their story, the known facts, and what the autopsy reveals. So it's important that before coming to any conclusion and making any statements in the public, that you have all of the factors and all of the evidence in front of you, maybe not all of it, but sufficient of it to make a preliminary conclusion. Because even with the autopsy, any conclusion you draw without a complete, full and thorough investigation is still preliminary. Because facts can change certain situations. It is possible that the person who shot the police officer was standing behind the officer, and that could include the suspect. It could also include other police officers, or it could include someone else entirely. It's also possible that the officer could have been running to find cover and thereby turning his back momentarily on the suspect and was hit at the back of the head. It is not likely that he was moonwalking towards the suspect and thereby got shot in the back of the head. So the question will be, where was the trajectory of the bullet? Where were the officers standing? What did the officers say in their statements? Because you know, having someone else saying that they have recordings, video, audio, I'm not sure which can shed light on the circumstances of this case. And that is the first thing that should have been done. The entire area should have been blanketed and canvassed by police officers to find out every bit of information that could be found out before the commissioner makes any statement. It is the same thing I was saying with sometimes the nonsense that you hear people talk on behalf of the police on TV, on Beyond the Tape. Yes, and I say nonsense because that's my opinion. People might think that everyone is making sense all the time, but from what I have heard and what my own understanding of the law and police duties and evidence, sometimes I know they are bluffing and they don't have all the facts. And I will reiterate the point I was making, that every commissioner needs to have officers, not always serving officers. Sometimes it's better to have retired officers as an advisory group, paid, part-time, full-time, or whatever capacity that you want to have them in order to assist in providing perspectives, providing experience, providing an understanding of the environment. And any commissioner who tells me that he could only rely on the officers within the service, or he will only rely on the officers within the service for such a purpose, does not understand the environment in which he or she lives. Every leader, commissioners included, must have an ego. Your ego comes from your knowledge, your experience, what you know, and from the things you have seen and heard. And it's good to have an ego when you're doing that job like that, thinking you are the best, believing you are the best, even if you may not be the best. But that is different to pride. Sometimes people have pride, or what we call in Trinidad, false pride. They feel they know, and they know not that they know not. Those are fools. And commissioners, to avoid themselves becoming fools, must surround themselves with people who can provide them with sufficient guidance and knowledge and perspectives so that it will assist them to make proper decisions. It doesn't mean that every decision you make will be right. And it doesn't mean that you must follow any and all advice given by your advisors. But it's important that you have access to it, so at the end of the day, you make a decision that you believe is right. And that is fine. Everyone expects leaders to make decisions. Look, I spent a fair amount of time working in the UN. And one thing I realized there is that people never really retire. You retire, but once you have the health, the knowledge, and the willingness to serve, to provide some assistance or experience or guidance, you will be coming back all the time. I have retired a few years ago, but I've still been involved in short-term contracts, in investigations for the organization, because I have the requisite skill and knowledge that they believe will help in that particular instance. And there are still avenues where I can approach to go back in some capacity if I want to. I don't really feel that way. So, short-term, temporary is good for me. But it seems in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, there is an attitude that when you're old or when you're retired, you're dead or your knowledge dies the day you leave the service. And you hear the arrogance of some of these young puplings, chicklings, towards seasoned and experienced police officers, not even trying to use their skills and knowledge to get a different perspective. They always think that you're coming to eat a food. But it's idiotic. The pot is not limited. You as leaders, the groups are sitting there, should be able to say, listen, we have people who can provide. Of course, you must do screening and understanding of who you're bringing in. You can't, I understand they wanted to bring in a certain officer and then his name got called in one of the scandals, one of the many scandals, and boom, he's off the radar. That is expected and that is understood and that is what should happen. Because you must maintain the integrity of the organization. But what is stopping the commissioner or the senior officers, in fact, from really acting as a group of people? They are lucky. There are so many senior officers still alive in Trinidad and Tobago who can provide some assistance. But they wouldn't use it. And if you try to call them, they might not even take your call. That is stupid. If that's the attitude. And this whole incident serves to highlight the need to have caution, to be reflective, to have a certain level of restraint, and to understand that you're not part of the social media world. You don't have to jump and respond on Twitter, on WhatsApp. You can take your time and make proper decisions. Now we're in a piece of nonsense now. Now they're asking the suspect to come in because the commissioner already made a faux pas by saying the man was shot from in front without even having an autopsy in front of him. Come on, man. It's annoying. Really, really annoying. And a lot of us criticize Gary Griffith because he was not a police officer and we felt he made a lot of mistakes because of that fact. But what is happening now with our present officers? Who doesn't seem to know anything that was happening? Imagine in Gary's time, they didn't know that surveillance equipment was being bought. But now people are saying, even the commissioner said himself, from what I understand, that the equipment was bought. He recalled, or he thinks it was bought during Gary's time. You recall or you think you don't know? Were you not part of that decision-making process? Are there not documents to support the purchase of such items? You mean to tell me that you all sat down there and allowed a bunch of civilians to become the executive of the service while you were sitting there doing nothing? Come on, all of you should go home as far as I'm concerned. Never had an executive meeting in years and none of you did anything? And now you have an opportunity to do something better in the absence of Gary Griffith. You're messing it up. You're messing it up. It's annoying and it's frustrating. I love the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. It has made me who I am, for better or for worse. I would like to believe it's for better. Look, people, let me fix the things that are wrong so we could move ahead and help the country to stem this constant flow of crime. Some of which I know the police can't solve themselves. And I'm going to reiterate my calls on the government and opposition to get off their butts and do something about passing stringent laws to stop the gunmen. But that's for another time.